Hey guys, Keith, Jesse on the camera. Tonight we got the MST CFX-W back on the bench. In our last video, in the end of it, we were playing around with changing out the tires from the stock tires they give you, which are no good for our terrain. You know, they're good for dirt and mud and sand and playing around, but here it's all limestone powdery stuff, so you need high grip. So these are kind of no good for where we're running. We went over to the Traxxas Trail Canyons. They're just some tires we had kicking around. They work great, so we're gonna run them on here. And we took 10 millimeters out of the front shocks for limiting it, help keep some of the torque twist under control. Still, we decided we want to get the center of gravity on the vehicle, which is how high she rides. Right now, it's sitting at like 4 inches or something like that underneath the belly pan. It's a little bit high for my likings. I like to get them as a little bit lower. And one mod that Jesse and I were just talking about, we're going to take the shock tower and shock off here and off of the mount here. We're going to flip the lower mount around, 2 bolts on the diff. We can take it off, flip it over, put it back on. We're going to put a longer bolt through the bottom. We're going to mount the shock with a small spacer and a longer bolt so it lines up, and we're going to move the shock tower back on these holes here. We're going to do the same all the way around. The back on the rear need to move forward, and the fronts need to move backwards, so we're more on the inside of the axle. The front we're going to try to keep as tight as we can. We might run into a bit of a problem with it trying to grab the shock when it's in that position, but we do want to go to a wider offset wheel anyway. There's a lot of thread left on this, so we might actually just put some wider Traxxas slash or something. They got the wider hexes in them, and it's a Traxxas part. It's got the 7mm hex instead of your standard 5. So we need a couple more mils on her, and eventually we're going to go to a Vanquish wheel with an offset hub. We can just push it out exactly where we want it. So, but for now, we're going to get the suspension on this thing so we can get her riding from yay to down yay, and actually make it even better than it was out of the box. So first thing we're going to do is knock this body off because it's flopping around. So take out somebody's eye. Close your body when you want to take it off. That way it won't break anything when you pull out the screws in the back. This body is top notch. We're going to cut out the extra material on the bed cage just to lighten it up. That'll be another mod we're going to be doing to it right away. Talking about all the bits and pieces in here. We've seen another guy with his posted up on the MST page on Facebook. So we decided, hey, that's something we can do. So yeah, first thing first, let's knock these tires off this thing. I don't know what the offset is on them. It's not really that big because Traxxas makes their wheels and tires to tuck under the bodies on their trucks, so you're not looking at the craziest offset out of the gate. But for tires that are pretty much throwaways, you can pick them up for next to nothing all over Facebook and whatever local classified online bull crap you guys use. People throw them away for like nothing. They're super soft, and like I said, where we live and work, a lot of limestone. Limestone is really dusty and slick, so these tires actually perform pretty good. Not as good as like your Pitbull Growler. The Pitbull Growlers are pretty much my go-to tire for where we live. They seem to find bite in everything. Loose gravel for some reason they can climb. As soon as you hit something wet though, with a growler, it's all bad. This thing is a pain in the butt to knock the you gotta take the C-hubs off to take off the shocks. Really pain in the butt design. So this will actually help. This mod will be so much easier. Now you'll just have to take a shock off, or a wheel off to take a shock off. Whew, long week. Pick a side. We've already started on the rear, so we might as well finish up on the rear. We might come back into this after and limit the rear shocks and the front shocks a little bit more, but now it's going to be so much easier to tune them and get exactly where we want, which is really important. tunability. I loaded this thing up with some pretty good torque. Those tires, they got some really nasty bite to them. And loaded this thing up really good. We had no clicking, no popping, no banging, no cracking, no creaking. Just kept on trucking. And you know, it's like I keep saying, and I'll say it again, this thing has a smoother and quieter driveline than my Pro or my Ultra. So, I'm not taking stabs at anybody, but this thing is smooth as butter. We will open up the gear cases in a little while, get 10 packs through it. As soon as snow lands here. Snow? Snow? As soon as the snow lands here, we'll rip her apart and check on the gears and see how they're wearing. I know we opened up, not we, a friend of ours opened up a his G-Wagon TRX4, and all the gears in the transmission were worn right out. They were going to spiky points, and all the grease was sparkly gray with metal filings. So that is a, you know, there's sintered metal gears nowadays. You know, like if you don't want to spend $1,000, you know, expensive it would be if they're all machine gears, right? So yeah, it's something we want to check on this guy, see how the gears are holding up. That's the beauty of the Trax, is though the parts are so cheap. You can buy a whole gear set just for a few bucks and you're laughing, right? So, okay, now we need to pull off our lower links right here. We're going to take out the lower link here, lower link bolt there, so we can separate those. And then there's the 2 bolts in the back. We're going to remove those, and then we're going to flip this piece over so you can see right now it's pointing down. We're going to make that point up just to get the shock a little bit higher and actually raise this link up just a little bit higher. So it'll give us two upgrades there. Hopefully it doesn't change too much with the angles and it will work, but we'll let you know. Well, you'll be here too, so just hang out and check it out. Okay, so far flipping this mount seems to be working just fine. It hasn't thrown off any of the geometry at all. We're only raising the rear link by, it's about 10 millimeters overall, so pretty decent. And then if we want to go lower yet on the truck, we can flip these mounts back over down the road, but I don't think that's going to be happening. I think this is going to get us right where we want to be. Okay, Jesse's going to find a couple bits and bolts for us there, and I'm going to swap this other side out. Okay, right on. So we've, like we discussed, we've taken the shock towers, moved them forward. We eliminated the battery tray from here. We've taken the strap, we've attached it to the side there. We can strap our battery down here. We might make a little catch for this, the battery so it can't slip out forward and backward. The strap sometimes in a good tumble, let that battery go flying. Move the shock towers forward, the holes lined up, that was all good. And then we took the shock mount from right here, moved it down here onto the link like you would see on your axial. Basically, most of your axles have them down there and stuff. Yeah, so we're going to do the same on the front, and that gets our altitude a lot lower on the rig altogether. And yeah, she can tuck up a little bit deeper into the chassis now. Perfect, yeah, okay. We're going to do the front, get in the same position, the same mod. Really, the only thing we needed to do is get these 2 bolts right here. And they were just, I think they were 8 millimeters longer, just so we could run it all the way through the shock inside. Now, you don't need to tighten these up. You can see we got a little bit of slop all the way to the bottom. You got the nylock on there as long as it's all the way through the nylock. Leave them a little bit loose. You don't need to tighten all this stuff up. These are plastic ball ends, and they will squish. And when you squish them, they will not perform. It would have nice to see metal in there. Would it be nice to see metal ball ends? At this point, these are obsolete, and nobody's using this 3 millimeter rod end no more in crawling. Everything's gone to the bigger 4 millimeter style, beefy. What was an axial one here? Flew the coop. Like your axial one. Much bigger thread, bigger size, and it has a steel ball in it, which actually pivots just as far as a Revo rod end. So yeah, so we're going to drop the front. We're going to think about dropping the front because it's actually sitting with a really good plane right now. I think we have to put it together, put the body on it, and kind of see what she does, and then have a little talk, chit chat, and go from there. Oh, another little quick mod we figured out to get rid of the rear camber. We still need to play with this one a little bit, but if you put a small spacer in between these lockout links right here, small washer, and you can get a couple small washers in there, you can actually tune how far in and out they go by stacking in there. And that was a dope mod because Jesse and I were in the middle of finding a link rod to put across the back, which you know is going to get caught and things, risk getting bent up and bashed up. And then from there we would have had to come up with another rod to come across to lock it out to somewhere on the diff. You know, it's just a lot going on, right? So you want to keep these things simple. That's a simple mod, keeps it nice and clean, and we're liking it. I think we're going to cut the back of the knuckle boxes off so it doesn't look like a 4-steer axle. It just looks like a normal planetary. And yeah, so next up is I really think we should test it before we do the front shocks. Let me know what you guys think on our theory on that. I think it's pretty good theory. I don't want to overdo it. You know, if we get a riding too low, it's NFGs, so yeah, I don't know. I think that's sitting pretty choice right there. I think we're gonna go with that for now. Peace. Okay, so I want to get some close-in shots here we're rolling with here. Okay, so your front shock towers were in this hole, and this hole, moving them back to here. You can pull out all the screws from here to here and spread the bumper enough to get the bolt in behind here without pulling out the motor, transmission, all that. You need to flip this lower link over, so when they're pointing down, it's pointing up, and that way you're closer to the shock, and then you can run your shock in here. And put it all back together. Let's get her done. Okay, well, that wraps up the mods that we've done to the MST. It was a fun little build from the beginning to the end. This is pretty much the end of what we're going to be doing with the suspension and the tweaking on it. We've pretty much nailed it. Thing crawls really, really well. Like we said, like we showed you, we just took the shock towers, moved them in a set of holes each so we could drop the shock straight down now to the lower, I don't know, can you see there? It goes to the lower shock link now, down here, instead of hooking up to the top behind the C-knuckle up here. Night and day difference on the truck. We took it out today, you can see in the footage. It throws down pretty good. Battery lasted all day. We were there for an hour and a half, something like that, 2 hours. Battery lasted no problem. Motor doesn't get hot at all with this planetary setup on it. It's super quiet, super efficient, runs great. Bound it up, didn't crack it, didn't creak it, didn't hear no popping, snapping, breaking. Snap, crackle, pops, everything went good. We are gonna run the Traxxas tires for now. We're a big fan of them. They work great where we are. We have a lot of slick rock, and like you see in the video, the stuff we're crawling on is kind of gross. I should wash my hands now after touching this, but yeah, so if you're thinking about getting MST, go get one. Follow the steps in this video if you want to make it a weapon. Actually make it what they should have done with it. I don't know why they went to such a high lift, but you know, you still got really good ground clearance, and you know, it doesn't want to like flip over at all now. It wants to come back down. So yeah, that's your MST CFX-W with the FJ40 or whatever, the F45C body or whatever it is. I highly recommend it at this point. Out of the box, I didn't like it. Oh yeah, remember we fixed the rear camber by putting these spacers, or the rear toe in, by adding a spacer behind that knuckle. You can add more or less, whatever you want to dial it in. And then I clipped the front link. It's a little bit short. I'm like a little bit towed in. I gotta put a spacer in there and come back out a little bit. But the 3-degree camber, we put wider tires on, and it seems to hide it pretty good. So the way it moved around today, though, I got no complaints with that. It did very, very good. I brought it as my primary truck. I didn't bring 2 trucks. I usually bring 2 in case one of them breaks or I'm not happy with the way one of them's performing. I'll swap out to one of my decent trucks like my Pro or something I know that runs really good, and just, you know, enjoy the rest of the time I'm out. But with this one, she ran hard the whole day. So if you're on the fence about getting one, go get one. Follow the steps in this video to actually make it a decent truck and rock and roll. Cheers. See you on the next build.